All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started, and those that join can just hop on in after we're done. So welcome to Family First Wednesday. My name is Beth Ayers. I am the Family Peer Support Lead at Montana's Peer Network. We do these Family First Wednesday webinars every month on the first Wednesday. And so this month we have Chinook Horses here. So I'd like to introduce Abigail Hornik-Minckler. She's the founder and executive director of Chinook Horses, and she's going to talk to us today about that program and all of the different programs within it that she has. I'll turn it over to you, Abigail.
Hi, thank you. Can I do a PowerPoint?
Yep, absolutely. You should be able to just share
it. Awesome. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let's see. All right, guys. Let me go back to Zoom. Share screen. There we go.
All right.
You guys can see it. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys can see that? Yes?
We can. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm Abigail Hornik-Minckler, as Beth said, and I'm the founder and executive director of Chinook Horses, and we're located here in Yellowstone County, on the west end, to be more specific, off of Neibauer on 54th Street. And what we do very specifically, and our mission statement is to provide equitable access to equine-assisted learning and therapy for individuals and families. And we are driven by passion and guided by integrity and committed to consistency. And what that really means is we really try and provide best practices, best breed practices, no pun intended, regardless of people's ability to pay for it. We don't turn people away simply because they don't have insurance or they can't afford our services. And that's why, in fact, we are a non-for-profit, and we work very hard to continually raise funds so we don't turn anybody away because of that. And we have some pretty stringent core values that that overarch our mission statement, and that we all adhere to, those of us that serve our constituents at Chinook Horses. So we definitely believe that healing from trauma is founded in connection and in relationship, and we trust in the science in relationship, and we believe that can be the relationship with the therapist, but it also can be the relationship that one has with the animals, and in this specific case, equines. All of our facilitators, both our equine specialists and our therapists, are trained in trauma-informed care and in equine-assisted therapy modalities. And I'll go more into that later on in the presentation. We are very dedicated to having the best of, I just mentioned this before, but having the best team of both human and horse facilitators. So we don't just invite anybody to be on our team. We really look for very specific therapists who have a focus in either working with the neurodiverse brain and or an expertise in trauma. And then we also work with horses who we don't work with horses who are quote unquote dead broke, or what we call in the industry nose to tail horses. We actually want horses that have personalities, because we are looking for dynamic relationships. So we don't want horses that are ready for the glue factory. And lastly, we are really deeply committed to research, and we want to contribute to the field of the burgeoning field of researching the efficacy of equine-assisted therapy. So we do a lot of pre and post assessments of, obviously with the client's permission, of their treatment with us. So who we are, and who we serve. About 82% of our clients are youth. Over 50% of our clients, unfortunately, are referred to us by Child Protective Services. We do about 700 session hours annually. We are well known for serving the neurodiverse community. About 60% of our clients are categorized as low income, and we track that simply by the fact that most of our clients are Medicaid. And we are able to bill Medicaid. 25% of our clients identify as Indigenous. And during the COVID-19 crisis, we were honored to serve. We had a program for the healthcare workers, and we were able to provide services to 68 healthcare workers through a program that we did through the Billings Clinic. So who benefits? Like, what does the population look like, and how is it successful? So we work with kiddos who have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. We work with clients who have depression and anxiety. Executive functioning disorder really benefits from equine-assisted therapy and learning. Fetal alcohol syndrome, learning differences, oppositional defiant disorder, sensory processing disorder, autism, and trauma. The overarching theme with all of these things is emotional regulation, right? And I'll go into that more in depth. So Chinook Horses is the only equine facilitated therapy program here in Yellowstone County that practices two different modalities combined. So one is EGALA, which is Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, which is an international organization that certifies people, and natural lifemanship. And this is important because everybody that works at Chinook is certified in one or both of these modalities. So everybody's working from the same toolbox. Everybody's speaking the same language. And what's important about that is it's an experiential modality. And what that means for our clients is that it really helps them externalize what they're trying to process, and therefore it tends to happen much more quickly. The overarching theme with EGALA, probably the biggest takeaway about EGALA, is that they believe, and therefore we believe, the biggest foundational belief is that the client has the best solution for themselves. So for example, we might give them an activity to do with the horse. We are not going to approach it from a horsemanship perspective. We're not going to teach them how to get a horse over a jump without a lead rope and halter. We're going to hold space for them and support them in that experience, but we are not going to teach them how to do it. We're going to believe that they have the best solution in doing that. And sometimes it's wild because we'll think that they're going to do it one way, and we think we know the best way to do it, and the client will have the most imaginative, great solution and do it some way we never even thought of, and it's brilliant and it's great. So that's a big part of what we do. And then natural lifemanship really believes in the biology of the connectiveness of relationships, and that we can really heal from having a healthy relationship. So sometimes we might just sit back and watch the relationship or the connection with the horse and the client unfold, and point out to the client what's going on with the relationship, what's happening with the horse, how is the horse reacting, how are they reacting, where are they feeling that in their body. So how does it work? So every session, if we're doing equine assisted therapy, has a mental health practitioner, a licensed therapist. Every session has an equine specialist. So that's an individual who has expertise in horses and either each of these people are certified either in EGALA and or natural lifemanship. The equine specialist is there for the horses and the client's safety, and partners with the mental health practitioner to build on session activities, create session flow from a session to session. And then there's a herd of horses that are loose and at will. And then sometimes there's a special education professional. And then, of course, there's the client. So it just depends on the client's therapeutic or learning goals. So sometimes we'll have all five. sometimes we might just have a special education professional if we're doing equine assisted learning, and we won't have a mental health practitioner, but there's always a herd of horses, there's always a client, there's always an equine specialist. So it just kind of depends who we're catering to and what we're trying to accomplish. Our constants at the base of our pyramid, so to speak, are EGALA and natural lifemanship. So we're always certified in one or the other or both. And then on top of that, we always are checking in with where the clients are at in terms of the zones of regulation. So I don't know who's in my audience, so I don't know if people are familiar with the zones of regulation or not, but I'll go over that in the next slide. And then on top of that, we often review social thinking skills with our clients, even in individual therapy. And then on top of that, we often reflect on the 7 habits of highly effective people, and teens and kids. So especially in our leadership development program. So we often reflect on the zones of regulations, even in individual therapy, because the gift of horses, and this is why we really work with horses, and this is why the horses are loose in the arena. Some people might think, oh my God, the horses are loose, they're not tied up, or we're not riding them. Like, why is that? It's actually very safe to have the horses loose, because if the horses don't feel safe, they can move away, opposed to them being tied up where they could turn around and, I mean, they can pivot and they could kick or they could bite, and they're at will. So if we're working with a client or clients in a group and they're dysregulated, the horses are at liberty and they can move away. So it's incredibly safe insofar that they can move away from what's irritating them. And it's also incredibly fair and untraumatic for the horses to be able to have that freedom to move away. And we like that. And especially when we're talking, when we're trying to set an example of healthy relationship, we don't want to demonstrate relationship. We don't want to engage in relationship that reflects dominance, subserviency. We're trying to form a partnership, right? And so we're not asking for compliance, we're asking for partnership, we're asking for friendship, we're asking for engagement. And so when a child isn't regulated, we try and help them figure out what zone they're in and how can we help them to get the green zone. And what we tell the caregivers is we tell them that we're teaching the kids the zone, and we're also very quick to tell the caregivers this is not a punitive system, right? So we're not going to give the parents the sheet or the caregiver the sheet and then say, please don't take this sheet home and yell at your kid and say, get in the green zone, right? That's not what it's about. It's like, how can I help you get into the green zone? And we model that, and we model that in session. And we do deep breathing exercises in sessions, and we check in. So and our horses are wonderful because our horses really aren't interested, because they're flight animals, in engaging with humans if they're in the yellow or red zone. They're perfectly comfortable being around someone who's in the blue zone, and in fact they can be a tremendous depending on the horse, a tremendous amount of support for a human being who is in the blue zone. But most likely they will move away from a human who is in a yellow and red zone. So it's just, it's really good feedback. And then in terms of social thinking rules and tools, it's a wonderful opportunity. Horses are herd animals. It's a wonderful opportunity to see, again, externally, how positive chain reactions begin. It's also an opportunity for kiddos, and this is more in our group sessions, to experience flexible thinking. Our kids who have, or our clients who have sensory processing disorder or challenges, there's a lot of challenges at the barn, right? There's really strong smells. There's hairy animals that shed. There is, they don't have to do it, but there's an opportunity to feed treats with mouths that have like slimy lips and whiskers and, you know, spit. And so there's lots of challenges at the barn. There's also a lot of opportunities that require you to think with your eyes, right? It hurts to get stepped on by a horse, right? So you really, we did a partnership with the University of Mary's graduate doctorate program, and the biggest efficacy that they saw was an increase in body awareness with the kiddos that went through our program. Which is understandable because they're dealing with a really big animal. And so they're kind of, you know, that was the biggest bump. So there is a lot of whole body listening that goes on. Body and brain in the group. So, I mean, we do crazy things like we play red light, green light with horses. You know, you're paired up with a horse, and you have a horse and you're playing red light, green light, and you have your peers who are doing the same thing at the same time. And boy, do you have to think with your eyes, and boy, does your body and brain have to be in the group, or, you know, there's just going to be a train wreck. And we haven't lost anybody yet. And you have to follow the group plan. So there's just so much opportunity, for social thinking, out at the barn. And then our other constant is the leader in me, and the 7 habits of highly effective people. We obviously don't use the adult version with the kiddos. We use the 7 habits of happy kids. But we do use the 7 habits of highly effective people with our adult clients. And we don't, all that being said, you know, these are structures we rely on, but in the same token, whatever the client, it's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like whatever the client shows up with that day is what we work on. So we might go from week 1 to week 2 with an idea of what we're going to do in week 2. But if the client shows up with something that happened in between week 1 and week 2, we are not going to do that agenda, right? So we're deeply committed to always meeting the client with where they're at, and not going with an agenda. So a lot of there are benefits to mounted work. We're not opposed to mounted work. We just don't do it. And one of the reasons we don't do mounted work is it doesn't afford the opportunity to meet the client where they're at. And part of that is for safety reasons. So I get that. But we want to meet the client with whatever they come with that day. I know I've spoken really fast. I'm a New Yorker. I tend to do that. So I'll go over a few other things, and then I'm going to open up to questions. But really what we have found is that this tends to be a more quick. Individual therapy tends to be a much more quick process with us than traditional therapy, just because we keep it external. So ironically, they internalize it more quickly, if that makes any sense. So we're not sitting there and saying, what do you think? What do you feel? It's more, where do you feel it in your body? And what's going on with the horse. So then they're able to, they're just able to internalize it more quickly, and experience it. It's experiential in nature. And we've seen inappropriate behaviors decrease outside the arena, and benefit clients in the classroom and in the community. So it's just, we've gotten really great feedback. Those pictures on the left are good examples of our group programs. I did send flyers to Beth about our leadership development program we have going this summer, and our social thinking programs we have this summer, that we still have some available spots. So hopefully she'll pass that on to the mailing list. And if you guys want to take advantage of that, you can just give me a call. So the programs that we do have that I sent flyers for is the social thinking group, which is spearheaded by a woman named Kelly Melius. She has Blue Kangaroo Autism Play Center, and it's a wonderful program, and it's very, very focused on the zones of regulations and the rules and tools of the social thinking curriculum. It's a week-long camp. It meets for an hour and a half. And we specifically focus all the activities around the zones and a rule and tool of social thinking. And then we have the leadership development program, which is focused on the 7 habits of highly effective teens and kids. And that's a 5-day program as well, but that's 3 hours long because we learn 7 habits in the course of 5 days. And there's a horse activity around 1 or 2 habits. And then, because we're learning 7 habits in 5 days, and then we take snack breaks, and we do snack breaks too in the hour and a half of social thinking, but we take 2 snack breaks in the course of 3 hours. And we do 1 or 2 horse activities around a habit. And we also do an arts and crafts activity around the habit. So it's a pretty chock full 3 hours. And again, the zones and social thinking are integrated into it, but I'd say it's more top heavy on the zones and the 7 habits, and social thinking is more top heavy on the zones and social thinking rules and tools. So, and then individual therapy is really focused on what the person's individual therapeutic goals are. So we might be dealing with anxiety and depression. We might be dealing with trauma. We might be dealing with substance abuse. We might be dealing with relationship issues. So that is really, really custom tailored to the individual. We have 4 different therapists that we work with. We try and match up the client to the appropriate therapist. Oh, and I should note that the leadership development program is spearheaded by a former school counselor, Carolyn Yagan, who taught the leader in me in the Billings public school system for many years and is now with Chinook Horses. And we have actually published our leadership development program and presented it at the Gala International Conference this past spring. And people actually purchase it, which is very, very exciting. So it's gotten some, I don't know what you would call it, notoriety. That's not the right word, but recognition. So that's lovely among our peers. So here's an example of a horse activity that we do both in individual therapy and in the leadership development program. So habit number 1 is, and I'll do the hand signals that we do with the kiddos, but we also do this in individual therapy because this comes up in individual therapy. So habit number 1 is, I'm in control. I am responsible. I do not blame others for my mistakes. I do the right thing, even when no one is watching. I choose to be proactive instead of reactive. And so what we do, and this happens to be an individual session, is we draw a donut in the arena and we do index cards of like what's in my control and what's not in my control, right? So, and then you have to get a horse into the donut, and then you have to try and make the horse stay in the donut. So clearly you can get the horse into the donut, but you can't make the horse stay in the donut, right? Because the horse isn't on a lead rope and halter. So it just, a lot of stuff comes up for people. And the kids, when they, in the group sessions, the kids have to do it together. So they quickly learn they can't control their peers, in trying to get the horse in the donut. And it's a lot of fodder for discussion. So this is a good example of what we do both in an individual and group therapy. And this is our leadership team, both equine and our therapists. And we just added a new therapist She's with New Day, and she works with us part-time. Her name is Amy Crook. She's wonderful. She actually, her area of expertise is family counseling. So that's really a marriage counseling, which is a great addition to our team. And now I will open it up to you folks because I talk really fast and I apologize. Don't be shy.
Thank you, Abigail. I love this. So, such great information. It gets me really thinking about just pretty much that everybody could use these tools. So yeah, we'll open it up for questions. Does anybody have anything?
I have a quick question. Hi, Abigail. How are you?
Hi, Carol.
Are you tracking these kids into adulthood at all?
We are not.
Okay.
That's a great question. I would love to. What we are doing with their permission is we have a software now with a bunch of scales, like PTSD, GAD, those type of things. So we are doing pre and post assessment but that's kind of as good as we've gotten.
Interesting. That's good. Then as far as the special education component, what kind of successes are you seeing in the classroom? Is it translating into the classroom?
It is. So we've done 2 research studies with, as I mentioned, with the University of Mary, and the biggest bump that we saw was in body awareness. And I can share that research study with you.
That's great. I know that that's one of our biggest challenges is our behavior kids in the school system and not being trained and not knowing what to do with them. So that's wonderful.
And
Thank you.
and we just got Brenda Koch on our board. I don't know if you know her.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So she just joined our board, and I've also been working with, we used to work with Sammy Bushman when she was at Washington School. And she and I just started talking about getting the kiddos from the special needs kiddos from senior over to Chinook. And we couldn't get the funding for transportation from the Education Foundation. But we are trying, between her and Brenda, we're going to try and navigate. I'm just reluctant to go after funding on our end without having a commitment from the school. Like if I get funding, I need to make sure the school will use it to bring the kiddos there, because there's a great vulnerability for us if we get the fund. Beth and I talked about this when we met for coffee. There's a great risk if we get federal funding and then the school doesn't take it. Right. We could really step in it. So I need to queue all of that up, but we would love to start getting the special education kiddos at Chinook during school hours.
Yeah, it seems like that Delta program, that the alignment with that would be perfect with what you guys are doing. So thank you for the work you're doing, Ab.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank
I
you.
refer people to you all the time when they say to me, I can't get the IEP. I'm like, go to Carol. Carol and I go way back.
Oh, sorry. This is Utana. Hi, Abigail.
Hi.
I wanted to ask a questions. I was a little late getting on.
Yeah.
So I apologize. So if I make you repeat yourself, because we've used you guys, my kids have actually, went to therapists and stuff, and it's very wonderful. It's very productive. But like, I have a kiddo that misses going riding, like because the Olympics kind of horses went away. So do you guys have any, like for the therapies, like riding lessons for the special needs and incorporates therapeutic?
We don't. There's a program called Horses Healing Spirits or Horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I seen that.
Yeah. So, that's a totally different modality than what we do.
Okay. And then the other question was, we've discovered, and there used to be like sib shops and stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything special for like the siblings?
No, we did a
also-
sib shop. Kelly and I did a sib shop years ago.
Right, I was
Um,
with that one.
Yeah, and we loved it. And we organized it through Step, I believe. And
Yep.
and then Step, I don't know if Step stopped doing the sib shop. I don't know what ended up happening. We would love to organize a sib shop. We just don't have a conduit to it. So if you wanna
Yeah, I've looked
reach.
into it because I've reached out to like the actual sib shop. They have a whole bunch of stuff to help you get that going. But yeah, because my oldest boy missed all those and he misses being out there with you. So I was wondering if you had anything special for the older siblings these days.
Well, what we do have, which you don't have to be special needs to do it, is we have the leadership development camp. And
Okay.
we have leadership development camp is so wonderful because it's both for neurotypical and neurodiverse kids. So we group the kiddos by cognitive ability, and we are not interested in segregating the neurodiverse from the neurotypical, because we feel like both populations benefit from being integrated. Our concern is that everybody's on the same level cognitively, so everybody is enjoying themselves doing the same activities, like everybody's on the same level, and so we can create sophisticated arts and crafts activities based on, like, we do pretty sophisticated stuff based on what age range you are, right?
Okay.
So I just sent those flyers to Beth and she's going to be sending them out. How old is your son?
The one I'm speaking of as a sibling, I think he's 17, or he'll be
Okay.
17 in a month. I think. Yeah, he'll be 17 next month.
Okay, so we're doing leadership development for 15 to 17-year-olds in August, and it's super duper fun. Like,
Okay.
the teenagers like have a great time. And so most of those kids are neurotypical. If we have a neurodiverse kiddo in it, it's usually like a 20-year-old who, is cognitively in that age range. So
Okay.
yeah, if you it's 5 days a week, it's a whole week long and it's for 3 hours, and yeah, it would be great.
Okay, thank you.
We'd love to have them. Anybody else?
So this is Karen Graff, and I just wanted to ask, I heard you say that, if somebody's 20, but they fit in with 15 to 17-year-olds cognitively, what if you have somebody that's even older than that, but cognitively they're maybe 10? How would you place them?
I think we would just need to talk about it, because it would really depend on
Yeah, I get it. We can talk offline.
Yeah. I mean, we've had 20-something-year-olds who have been very comfortable being with people younger than them. And we have found that the teens have been highly, highly tolerant and kind to older people coming into their group, like surprisingly so. But I think it depends on the individual and how they perceive themselves.
Gotcha.
So, if that makes sense. Karen, why do you look familiar?
I don't know. I'm everywhere.
Yeah. Do you work you don't work at Walla Walla, do you?
No, I used to
Okay.
be a school nurse at School District 2, and then I went to Riverstone and I was the director of school nursing for all the county schools. And
Okay.
this last year I moved on to the National Association of School Nurses, but I live here in Billings. I'm a Special Olympics coach. I
Okay.
have a son with disabilities. Anyway, a
Okay.
lot of different
Okay.
venues.
Okay.
So what are your typical hours that you run
Oh, good
program
question.
therapy and
Yeah,
days?
yeah. So we're pretty much Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We you know, our therapists don't want to work weekends or evenings, and we don't really want to be at the barn after dark. But we do, our barn is heated, our arena is heated, so that's lovely. And we are at a different facility now, Carol, and so we have full run of the place, so we're not working around anybody else's hours.
Where are
And
you at?
we are at a private, a woman who owns a private facility, and it's lovely, and it's a heated arena. The only thing is when it's 10 or below with the wind chill factor, we don't bring the horses in, because then we have to put them back out in the cold, and it's not healthy for them. But you know, it's the arena is always at 48 degrees, and it's lovely, and it's cool in the summer because it's in the shade. And so it's really nice. I mean, we work year round, but I would say pretty much our hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So
What is your age limit? Like, is there any age limits to any of the
yeah, we
therapy?
yeah. So I would say, you know, before 5 years old, they're not going to get it. I will say that this work is, it is metaphorical in nature. And so, I will say, like, the one-on-one therapy does not work well for people, who are, very high on the spectrum. So, so if they're high on the spectrum, the group work is wonderful, right? So it, like, interacting with their peers and interacting with the herd, and doing the social thinking groups and doing the leadership development groups are wonderful, and it affords them a social opportunity they might not otherwise have. The one-on-one therapy is very metaphorical, because we're looking at, like, the horses, and they're very black and white thinkers, right? So we'll say, like, oh, what just happened with the horse? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, the horse just moved from one end of the arena to the other, or the horse just kicked the other horse. So what's the big deal? Like, you know, whereas, you know, someone who is low on the spectrum might be like, oh, he's really mad, and, you know, like, you know, or someone who's not on the spectrum at all will be like, oh my God, it's like my mom and my dad when they fight. And so so we really don't recommend one-on-one therapy, you know, psychotherapy in particular, for someone who's high on the spectrum. But the group therapy is wonderful, or the group, you know, the equine facilitated learning groups is wonderful for people on the spectrum, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
What other questions do we have for Abigail? Well, I have another one. So I'm thinking work related. Do you do like any sort of conflict resolution therapy? Because you talked about, you know, husband-wife marriage therapy. So
Yeah.
is that something too that maybe like two people that work at the same place could do?
Yeah. So interesting. So we just did a proposal. So we've done, I'll give you two examples. One is, we actually have CASA coming in, like Team CASA, which is a wonderful organization, for a day to work on team competency. And then during COVID, as you all know, our healthcare workers were in really, really bad shape. They were not happy campers. And so we had a program with the clinic where we had the healthcare workers come in, and the theme around their work that they did with us was self-care. So, so we can really custom create, and, you know, the healthcare workers could only come in for like 3 hours at a clip, because obviously they were totally under the gun, in terms of how much time they could give. So, we can really custom make whatever. So if you wanted to do like a day, if you wanted to do, you know, yeah. So to answer your question, absolutely. Like we had someone who did like a women's retreat, and she brought out, you know, two groups of women back to back, and, you know, as breakout sessions. And so we can do, you know, we need to flesh out like what the goals are, and then we can, just like we do for our clients, you know, the first session that we do in one-on-one therapy is what we call as a goal ladder, like what brought you here today. And people fill out index cards, and we put pool noodles down on the floor. And Carol knows this from her experience with us, not her personal experience, so I'm not divulging anything, but you know, we do pool noodles on the floor, and then you put the index cards in, and then you have to get one of your horses into each goal. And so it's very much, you know, what are your goals? You know, we need to flesh those out. We need to understand what you're trying to work on, and then we can build a program around that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
We'll see if the people I have in mind think it's a great idea, but I think it's such a useful, it pulls people out of, you know, sitting at a desk, sitting in a conference room, you know, and so it really, I don't know, I think it would be great. So we'll see what they think.
What it does is it takes the pressure off, right? It just, it alleviates that sitting across from the desk of tell me how you feel, tell me what you think, tell me, you know.
And I would imagine too, with adults who also have a hard time regulating their emotions,
Yes.
it would be a great way to address that without like actually addressing it, you know, calling it out. So I don't know. I just think it would be, yeah.
I think there's many reasons that we don't know why it works. I'm constantly curious about it. There's a physiological phenomenon where our heart rates slow by being around horses, which is interesting to me because some people, their adrenaline gets, you know, they're scared of horses. So it's interesting to me that they're, you know, your heart rate can slow by being around them. But I just watched the documentary Earthing, you know, where there's this whole theory about, you know, lying down naked on the ground and walking around barefoot, and the electromagnetic connection to the earth. And I would imagine when we're petting a horse and the horse's feet are on the ground, that we're connecting to that cycle of being grounded. And I think horses are very grounded animals when they're not feeling threatened, you know, when there's nothing to threaten them. So I would imagine we pick up on that calmness that cycles through them.
Sure.
You know, because you constantly just hear people like, I'm just so relaxed when I'm around them. I can just, you know, I've witnessed children crawling underneath them and being like, I feel so safe here. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I have $1 million liability policy. I'm so glad you feel safe under there.
So with that, talking about the adults, like I've been around you guys, and I rode with one of my sons at your place. And for me, those of you that know me, I'm pretty like stoic during the day, but when around the horse, yeah, it brings out a lot of different feelings. Because if you're good just being a grown up all day, like they gave me the biggest horse, my legs didn't fit over the edge, and I was terrified of this creature. So I'm all sweet talking it, not wanting to, you know, and so it did, but it was good. It's like I would be excited to be back at the horses. They do bring that sense of calm, that they do something to you. It is weird, like you were saying, Abigail, like, but it's a great feeling. I was just like, I knew it was going to sense everything that I had stuffed inside me and like do something, you know. So me and the horse had to work on it, because for me, trust is a huge thing. And that horse goes down in there, I don't know what his personality is or what he's going to do. So
Yeah.
It is big. It's a huge having faith, and yeah, it's amazing. So I appreciate all you do, Abigail.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, well, thank you. And Beth, I appreciate you getting those flyers out to everybody.
Yeah. No problem. Any last questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, yes, I will get those flyers out to everybody. I guess one new announcement from Montana's Peer Network is we have developed a new Facebook group for our family membership folks. And so if you haven't heard before, our membership is free. And what it does is it just kind of connects you to each other and to kind of all the different programs and things like that we have. So it is free. And so with that membership now, we're going to do a new Facebook group. And so that was on the flyer that I sent out. You do have to sign up first to be an MPN family, but again, that is free. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes, that really bringing everyone across Montana into some sort of a support network, I think is really great. So we're excited for that. Yeah, next month again, Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, we'll do this again. I want to thank Chinook Horses. Abigail, thank you so much. This was so interesting. I learned a lot, and so I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, everybody. You guys have a good rest of the day.